studying for our exam.
Well, you know what? I've got news for you. It's too late. The teacher's calling for you right now.
I like to cram.
You're fucked.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Suhana. I'm the belly dancer tonight. You like that?
Talking. Hopefully I'll stop.
Are you telling a story?
I'm going to tell a story.
Oh,
I'm telling tales.
oh crap.
Are you telling a story?
No, I'm telling him a story now.
Oh yeah? Is it true?
Mine's the oh totally. How I threatened to kill 3 people.
Oh, nice.
Not at all.
You're very comfortable.
I'm a lone wolf.
You're pretty self-satisfied. That's fantastic. What's your secret?
Oh my God, lots of medication. Lots.
Thank you.
Right here, what, you want some?
I know.
That is so bright.
I know.
I'm blind. Okay, just me, just me.
Here's line one.
Everyone needs to get out, he said, in a tone that distinctly said, duh. This whole process was starting to feel way more serious than I'd hoped. If the hours in a day were like real estate, Eddie's nap time would be like oceanfront property. Think it'll be 5 minutes, or do you think it'll be an hour, I asked. It's the fire department, they won't be an hour. I once thought the hardest thing about a car accident is not the blood and pain, but the embarrassment of people staring at you as they drive by. Just then an ambulance arrived. They needed to test me for monoxide poisoning. The machine registered nothing. They had me sign a piece of paper that said I'd refused medical attention. That night, we were sitting in the living room when outside we heard an ambulance speed by, its siren blaring. "What's that noise?" my son asked. My husband said, "Uh-oh, Mommy has a headache."
So I'd wear my subway outfit and change my clothes in a doorway on 36th Street. Because you'd never wear a mini skirt or spandex pants on the subway in those days, or else you might be murdered. You never knew what I'd have in my bag. Chocolate chip cookies, brownies, shortbread. One of my favorite moments was the night I was stopped on the stairs by Keith Haring. He was a busboy at Danceteria in those days, way before stardom. He said to me, I'm walking down the stairs with a shoebox, and he's like, "What's in the box?" And I said, "Mini chocolate eclairs." And he said, "Yeah, right." And I said, "Would you like one?" as I opened the box. His jaw dropped, making it very simple for me to slide the eclair right into it. From that night, we were friends. He'd say I was the highlight of his night. Compared to cleaning up vomit, the magic cookie lady is making her entrance and she has chocolate truffles. I didn't remember thinking about it. I realized that I'd never made a cake for more than 12 people. And this was way before there were a zillion cookbooks or the internet, so I didn't have a recipe for a wedding cake or a special occasion cake that's scaled, and I knew I didn't have any large cake pans. So I solved the problem with math. I'd make a cake for 20 people, a cake for 12 people, a cake for 8 people, and a cake for 6 people, and I'd pile them on top of one another. I'd also make a slew of whipped cream rolls, a dessert I'd already mastered to make up the difference in math. Each cake would be a completely different cake. because I only found recipes that matched the numbers, and all the cakes were different. So I put a chocolate cake on top of a banana cake, on top of an orange cake, on top of a vanilla cake. Easy peasy, right? You all know the question. If the person you are today could ask a question to the younger version of you, what would you say? I'd say, what the hell were you thinking? Frankencake! I screamed. And then there were tears. Lots of tears. Kenny came into the kitchen and saw me hysterical and my mom trying to console me, and he offered her some cocaine. She declined. I was like, where's mine? But I was holding out for heroin. I kept wishing that the floor would open up and swallow me alive. I saved the whipped cream rolls by making a sugar syrup and brushing it on the cake. But the Frankencake was so horrible looking. Thank God there were no camera phones in those days. I tried to pipe my way out of it with whipped cream by putting whipped cream stars all over it to hide my misery, but I only made it worse. It was an abomination. I was inconsolable, and the dessert had to go on. Kenny came to take the cake out, also known as my first walk of shame. I cried even louder. I kept wishing that the cake itself would burst into flames as we lit the candles. Go up, my friend. He took it out. I snuck over to the kitchen window and I peeked to see the reaction of the guests. They squealed with delight. Darling, it's fabulous. They dove on it. Within minutes, Frankencake was history. Beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. To me, it looked like an abject failure. To them, it looked like an avant-garde, edible punk rock art installation. And like all late-night bands of the Magic Cookie Lady, they were totally high.
And I'm like, I hear her. I turn to my right. And by golly, 2 feet from me, this Angora goat, its tongue hanging out its mouth, blood everywhere. I turn back around and she says, now what do you want me to tell the kid? And I'm like, me? Me? I'm like, what makes you think they're in my wheelhouse of experiences that I would know why llamas fucking Angora goat to death? I'm like, I don't know what to do, so I get on the walkie-talkie. Nell, can you go to channel 2? Hi, Nell. This is Michael, and we have had an issue down here at the Moho. A llama has gotten free from its corral and fucked an Angora goat to death in front of the kids, and I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh my God, Michael, I love you. I'm like, Nell, listen, I am serious as a heart attack. A llama has gotten free from its corral and came over here and fucked an Angora goat to death in front of the kids. I don't know what to do. I hear dead silence. I can hear her mind just whirring as she tries to figure this out. Finally, she says, Michael, just get rid of the kids. Just get rid of the kids and we'll take care of it. I get the kids, I get them all into the Moho. I think, okay, you know what, we can play with art projects, coloring books, whatever. Of course, the PA hasn't brought any of that. So I'm like, I give everybody a People magazine and say, hey, listen, here's a pencil, go through this, circle anybody that you think weighs over 90 pounds. Then I go back out and I'm like, I see 4 PAs coming and taking with garbage bags and they remove the carcass. I'm like, I bet those PAs were not expecting to do that job on that day. So she says, just go back and talk to the kids. And so I go back in the motorhome and I'm like, they're still, why, I don't understand, why, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, now listen here, kids, listen. Everything's okay. He did not mean to do that. They were just playing. It got a little out of hand. Everything is going to be fine. I said, he's probably, the goat is probably in heaven right now getting a shampoo and a cut so she doesn't look like a balled up, filthy cotton ball anymore. I tell you, what I really wanted to say was, kids, you know, listen. Let this be a cautionary tale. When that quarterback asked you to go out in the parking lot and knack after the pep rally, this could be you. Okay?
How about a hand for the band?
Yeah.
They're available for weddings, bar mitzvahs. Anyway, and how about a hand for James for that story? Goat getting fucked by Michael, I'm sorry, cold medicine. Well, you know what? The fucking band called me Maria, okay?
Just call me Adina Menzel.
Adina Menzel, ladies and gentlemen, Adina Menzel. Anyway, I'm thrilled to be here, and my story is you're not my mother, and he's not my father. No, I am not giving you another dime. You know, you and your father, you're the same person. You are just like him. Mom, I'm nothing like Dad because he's not my father. And guess what? You're not my real mother. Oh, really, young lady? Like, what kind of fakakta nonsense is that? Well, Mom, Rhoda is my mother. Rhoda Gutenberg from Spruce Court? You look nothing like her. No, Mom, Rhoda Morgenstern from the TV show. We looked alike, we sounded alike, and we both loved to wear kerchiefs on our head. So, you ask, how did my parents, Woody Allen and Rhoda, meet, mate, and create me? So this is how it went down. And I said to my mother, I go, I know this story, and this is what happened. One day, Rhoda needed a break from the cold Minneapolis winters, and she decided to have like a girls' weekend with her gal pals. So she rounded up Mary, Sue Ellen, Phyllis, Georgette, and the non-fag hag Murray, you know, to hit New York. And everybody said, you gotta go to this really cool hip speakeasy, which is now a cabaret called the Duplex. Yeah. Remember? And you gotta go see this hot rising comedian, Woody Allen. So they go to the Duplex, and Woody Allen, he is killing, and Rhoda does a spit take because she is laughing so hard, and Woody is totally killing. So after his set, he gets off and he sees Rhoda in the audience, and he walks over and he says, I'm Woody. Would you like to join me at the 2nd Avenue Deli for a bite to eat? I gotta work on the Woody, huh? Okay. So they go to the 2nd Avenue Deli, and there they are sitting, sharing kashka varnishka, borscht, stuffed derma, and the chemistry just starts percolating. Woody removes his glasses and he awkwardly leans over and he kisses Rhoda right on the mouth. And the next thing you know, a month later, she misses her period. She calls her sister Brenda back in New York. Bren, hi. It's me, Rhode. I'm pregnant. So that's the story. Okay, Mom? So now your cover is blown. I know how I got here, and I know the truth. So, how much do you want to borrow this time? I don't know, Ma, $500? Well, maybe you should go ask your mother, Rhoda, or your father, Woody, for the money.
I found myself suddenly homeless and suddenly single at Christmas time. Ho ho, fucking ho. Now, up until this time, I never ever considered going on Grindr. I had been in a happy, peaceful, boring, sex once a week marriage for 3 years, and Grindr was for single guys, right? Not for married guys. Call me traditional. Now, however, I was suddenly single, and I admitted I wanted to, at the very least, be touched. And by touched, I do not mean touched by a Maya Angelou poem. So I got on Grindr and I set up my profile and I picked my nickname to be my Grindr name, JD. And I added nice dude, because, well, I am nice. My mother tells me that. Nice dude JD was my Grindr name. I thought that summed me up. I was a dude, I was nice, my name was JD. I used a photo that I thought had the right amount of insouciant toughness and sexy availability. Alright, it kind of looked like this. Hold on. It was something like that. I should probably put this on for the rest of the story. I don't want to distract you or anything. And sudden urgent request for sex, and I got sucked in, baby. Oh, I did. Grindr was a Hoover vacuum, and I was a crumb on the rug, and I was desperate for as many dick pics as I could get my hands on. And what the hell had happened to me? I mean, 2 months before, just 2 months before, I was texting my partner, how are we on toilet paper? From ShopRite. As you all know, the winter of 2014 has been hell. So I texted Larry7 that I was freezing, and I asked if I could come over and get some wood. And he texted back, yeah, I've got wood for you. So I used the cargo van to get there. Remember the cargo van, the monster cargo van? And when I arrived at Larry7's home, I drove up his narrow, crooked, insane driveway, which was completely unsuitable for a cargo van, and took a sharp right into the wooden fence of Larry7, right over a nail, and fucking flat freaking tire. Then came the dogs. They erupted, tore from the house like two demons. Their barks, screeches, and howls were something out of a horror movie. And screeches and howls that make nails on the blackboard sounds like sounds of waves on a beach. The next day we took the Corolla, Paul and I, to Larry7's house in Yardley. That was weird. Hi, Paul, this is Larry7. Larry7, Paul, hello. And almost needless to say, the bitch hounds from hell treated Paul the same way they treated me, as if he were Lucifer coming to rip Larry7's heart out and stick it on that busted fence. We left the keys inside the Corolla, not the van, and Paul found the keys in the Corolla, which meant that on Monday I had to get my ass out to Yardley for the third time to orchestrate everything, the handing of the van keys off to the tow truck driver, towing to Pep Boys, replacing the tire with a new one, and so on and so on and so on and so on, and finally, on Monday night, I got the van back to Paul, the flat tire off, new tire on from Pep Boys. Well, I want to tell you something. I'm getting off Grindr, and you're my witness. What do you think of that? I think that's a good idea. So I canceled my subscription, I deleted my profile, and nice dude JD disappeared into the ether, and that night I sat on my bed and I grabbed my chest and I sobbed. I sobbed so fucking hard I could barely breathe. Paul sat with me as I grieved the next night. He opened a bottle of wine and he said, I wish we had wood to start a fire. And I said, wait! We do! We have wood, Paul! And he said, what? I said, we do! In the back of the van! Yes! Despite the 72-hour-long tragedy of errors, Larry7 had placed firewood in the back of the van while it had been sitting in his driveway. Kindling wood, too. So Paul and I drank Trader Joe's red wine in front of a fire that burned Larry7's wood. And I imagined many other things getting thrown into that fire. A great many other things.
Willamette City debut. It's very Rhett-like for me. I'm having like a Rhett moment. I wish I could scream you a song in the voice of Adela Nazim. So this story is called How I Made My First Friend in New England. 1995. I just moved from Los Angeles, New Hampshire to go to law school, a state that I've never visited before. Now, I went there for a couple of reasons. One was for the school itself. The second was because New Hampshire seemed so dramatically different from any other place I'd ever lived before. And also, I wanted to find out if my boyfriend of 6 years loved me enough and was committed enough to follow me across the country. And his answer was no. Yes, thanks. Anyway, so thus, I find myself alone in the woods and living in a cabin in the woods. You know, there really isn't anything else in New Hampshire except for woods. Lots of trees, lots of birds, lots of insects, me and my miniature dogs and snorkel. Now, I'm the type of person who gets everywhere early. So, law school starts in August, I got there in May. And so, I had a lot of time to snorkel and my miniature dogs and snorkel and I to sort of wander about the woods. And one day, I'm just kind of wandering about the woods and eating tortilla chips as I like to do. And I start to choke on this tortilla chip. And I start to panic, you know, because then I suddenly think, like, wow, nobody even knows that I'm here. I mean, I know nobody in this entire state. I'm alone, I'm in the woods, except for my dogs, and I'm choking on a tortilla chip. I don't know what to do. I'm running around, I'm gasping for breath, I'm throwing myself against, like, pieces of wood and logs and stuff. And then finally, I manage to dislodge a tortilla chip, and I say, I need a friend. So, I go to Boston and I start picking up some community papers looking for some sort of club to join, and I find one. It's the Boston Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgendered Scuba Club. Right? And I think, oh my god, well, you may not know this, but underwater adventures are very big within the LGBT community. This is not the same as the idea that lesbians love whale watching, which I can neither confirm nor deny, but I say, who doesn't, really? This is scuba. So I scuba dive. I think, well, this is perfect. And it turns out they have a shark cage dive off the coast of Rhode Island in just 2 days. I think, well, this is perfect. I've always wanted to go on a real shark cage dive. I can meet some people. I'm multitasking. I'm practically an attorney already. Everything is going great. I make a call. I buy a map. I drive half the night. I arrive at this place at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I think, oh my god, maybe I made a terrible mistake. Well, it's very dense. The fog is very, very dense. The foghorns are blowing, woo, you know, and the seagulls going, caw, caw, and they're flying around, and there's this big old, you know, sort of fishing boat there with a shark cage on it, and about a dozen men and women at the end of the dock. So I go down to them and I introduce myself, and they're all very nice. These people are very nice. Very sort of diverse group. You know, this one's a real estate agent. This one's a heart surgeon. This one works in the L.O. Bean factory. They're very nice people. But the fact is, they already know each other, so they're already friends, and they have things to talk about that don't involve me. So I go up on the boat by myself, and I start to take a look at this cage that's sort of strapped down on the back of this Deadliest Catch fishing boat. And it's sort of it's about 10 feet tall and about this wide enough for 2 people to be in it, and about this deep, and it has big red buoys on every corner so that it floats at the top of the surface, and there's an escape hatch at the top that goes like this, and a door over here with a very, very complicated lock, because, you know, the fish are tricky with locks. And other than the hole right in the front, it seems perfectly safe. Well, I go inside the cage and I start practicing with the lock and stuff, and somebody says, hey Mike is the leader of the group, hey Mike, why don't we it looks like everybody's here, you know, why don't we get started? And Mike says, well, everyone but Meg. And suddenly the boat gets very, very quiet. And the fog gets very thick, and the seagulls, they fly up, caw, 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 they fly out, the seagulls come. And I'm thinking, like, oh my god, well, who is this Meg person? Because people seem really freaked out about it, and we're very, very tense about this Meg person. But I think, you know what, I don't know these people. It's really not my place to be the person to, who says, who is Meg? I'll just wait and see, what happens. And so somebody says, Mike, does Meg know that this is gonna be a mixed group? He says, I don't know, why don't you ask her yourself? Here she comes now. Boom, boom, boom. You can hear her coming through the fog, but she gets really thick, and the seagulls, they fly off again. Caw, caw. Some of the seagulls, they come back in the interim, and now they fly off again. Caw, 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 caw. Right? And then Meg appears through the fog, and she's taller than I am. She's got curly red hair. She's wearing a wife beater with no bra. She's got this neoprene pants, a big shark knife right here, and these big steel-toed boots, and she's got a cigarello coming out of her mouth, and on either shoulder she's carrying a giant steel air tank. I mean, all she really needs at this point is like an eye patch and a parrot, and she'd be a pirate. And Meg looks around the group and she says, I thought this was gonna be a girly boat. And she looks right at me. Well, I did not know what to do. I freaked. I curtsied. Milady. Well, the boat starts to sail out, and it gets hot, starts to get hot, and the issue of chum comes up. Well, here's a short lesson on how you make chum. There's 2 garbage cans, one is empty and one is filled with freshly dead fish, and there's a shovel. So one person scoops the dead fish into the empty, garbage pail, and the other person takes a shovel and chop up the fish until you get gazpacho is what you get eventually. And someone says, the captain says, we need a volunteer to make chum. Meg says, I'm gonna make chum. So then they need a volunteer to work with Meg, and all the eyes go to the new guy. So pretty soon Meg is scooping the dead fish into the bucket, and I'm chopping it, and the boat is rocking, and it's hot, and the dead fish guts are flying up, and it stinks like anything, and now really nobody wants to talk to the new guy, because I smell like dead fish guts, and if I even start to, waver a little bit, Meg goes, About 2 hours later, we reach the spot. They throw the anchor overboard, and Meg and the captain, they grab so first of all, Meg starts taking the chum, she's just throwing it over the boat. And we all take positions on the boat. We look for a shark, because they say, we can chum the waters, we may not get a shark. There's no guarantee you're gonna get a shark. So we're all watching, about a half hour later, a fin pops up, and everyone goes, yay! And then we're watching the fin, and then suddenly another one pops up, and everyone goes, yay! And then another one, and another one, and another one. Suddenly there's all kinds of sharks in the water, right? And Meg and the boat captain, they untie that cage, they take it to the side of the boat, and they drop it over. And the captain starts letting out this rope, and the cage starts to float out about 100 feet. Someone says, well, what's that about? And the captain's like this short guy with a weak chin and a mullet and an Iron Maiden t-shirt. And he goes, well, I didn't want the cage to scratch the paint on the boat, so the deal is we gotta swim 100 feet out to the boat. And someone says, well, what if the sharks get aggressive, He goes, everybody take a stick. And he takes this bucket, and the bucket is filled with these sticks. He passes them out. They're about 2 feet long, and there's kind of a short little nail on one end and a little rope handle on the other. And he says, okay, if the sharks start to bother you, first poke it with the blunt end of the stick, and if that doesn't work, go ahead and poke it with a nail. Poke it with a nail, poke the shark with a nail. What are you talking about, poke the shark with a nail? I'm gonna poke a shark with a nail? How? I'm not doing that. So someone says, well, who's gonna go first? Meg says, I'm gonna go first. She straps her tank on her back. She does a backflip off the boat. She swims out to the cage. And we're waiting to see if somebody responds. We can see her bubbles, we know she's in the cage. And a couple minutes later, the top of the cage opens and Meg sticks her head out and she says, there's a whole lot of fucking sharks in here. Well, Meg eventually comes back and people start going out 2 by 2, and it becomes apparent that I'm going to be the last person picked for a team. So Meg is chumming the waters, and now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's really late, and we've run out of chum. And they pair me up with this tiny little woman named Cindy. Cindy works in a fleece making factory. She's adorable. She's 65. I mean, she's a good diver, but she's tiny. She doesn't look like she could be much help if there's some sort of issue. But she's a very nice lady anyway. So we're partners, and we get our sticks, and we go to the edge of the boat, and we jump in the water, and we swim out to the cage. And I try not to look at the sharks at all, because now there's no chum, and there's just so many sharks you can't count them. And they're swimming around. Mi gusto peces, mi gusto peces. Mi gusto peces. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's just because I grew up with a West Side Story, but in my mind, all the sharks speak with a Puerto Rican accent. Mi gusto peces, mi gusto peces. And they're swimming around, and we We get to the cage and I go in, I shut the door and I do that lock thing, which is really good because right away the fish are like, let me in, let me in, let me in, let me in. I'm like, I can't. So we're in there, right? And the sharks are circling the cage and, okay, you know how I mentioned that there was a hole in the front of the cage? So that is for video equipment, your like National Geographic cameras that you can hang outside of the cage and film the shark. But we don't have any video equipment, we just have a big hole in the cage. And all of a sudden, this sort of one long skinny shark swims into the hole and it gets stuck, like right behind its neck. The shark's neck. And it's just, and you know, it's looking, and these are Atlantic blue sharks, so they're like between 6 and 11 feet, 450 to like 800 pounds. They're long, they got the eyes, they got the teeth, they're fully shark-like, right? And it's looking at me like this, benedizione, tu got some peces? Tu got some peces, some rojo peces, some longo peces? And I'm like, no, I don't have any fish. Go away, I don't have any fish. You got peces? Don't know peces, Bobby? How about tu abuela? You got some peces? She doesn't have any fish, she doesn't have any fish. And Cindy's in the corner holding her stick in the corner like this. And you know, we can't just be here with, you know, a half a shark in the cage. There isn't room for this, right? So I take my stick off my wrist and I tie it to the side of the cage, and I very gently press against the nose of the shark. And it pops out. It goes, ay, oh, Dios mío. It swims off. Suddenly I hear beep, 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 beep. I look down at my air regulator and I have run out of air. And the excitement of swimming into the shark tank and confronting the Spanish-speaking shark and you know, pressing on it. I have gone through my entire tank of air in like 15 minutes. I look at Cindy's regulator. She's got 1,800 pounds of air. She's like 90 pounds. She can be here all night. She's not going anywhere, right? But I have to go back to the boat. So I reached for my stick and it has come untethered from the cage. And now it is floating along the surface, floating off to Italy or wherever sticks go when they want to be free. It is just gone from my... So I turn to Cindy and I try to pantomime to her. You give me your stick, I'll swim back to the boat, bring 2 sticks, give you 1. She goes, fine, I'm going back to the boat without a stick. I open the cage and I exit the cage and I begin swimming back to the boat. Okay, so here's a little tidbit about sharks, shark education for you. Sharks are attracted to shiny objects like the metal on the boat or the weights around our waist. Well, I'm about halfway to the boat and my tank is going but I can't go to the very top of the surface because then you lose all of your mobility. I've got to try to stay under the water long enough to get to the boat without running out of the air, but be close enough to the surface in case of an emergency. It's just very confusing. Well, right at this moment, I see one very, very large shark trying to rip the ladder off of the boat. I pause. At that point, the shark sees me. And it turns around and it swims in the opposite direction. I think, oh, phew. But it turns out it wasn't leaving, it was just making a U-turn under the boat. And now it's coming toward me, and I see that its fin is out of the water, so I'm praying that somebody on the boat sees this, and if it attacks me, they at least, pull my lifeless, body out of the water. These people don't even know me. They could be like, I don't know, he parked his car, and then we never saw him again. We don't know. Look in New Hampshire. I don't know where he went. Right, so the fin is out of the water, my thing is going, and it's coming closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, until finally we are nose to snout. So I do what they tell you to do on National Geographic if you ever find yourself nose to snout with a shark. I made the biggest fist I could, and I hit it in the face as hard as I could. And for a moment, the shark froze. Puñeta, puñeta, puñeta. And it swims away, and all the other fish are like, Dios mío, Bobby. Well, I stick my head out of the water at this point. Before they're all like, boy, like that. Head out of the water. And I look to see if anybody has witnessed this. The only person on the boat who is watching this is Meg, standing at the railing. She's covered in white beaters, covered in fish guts and blood. She's got a cigarello in her mouth. She leans over the railing. She goes, Yeah. So I swim back to the boat as fast as I can. Meg grabbed me by the tank. She pulled me up onto the boat. She throws her arm around my neck and she says, "This guy just punched a fucking shark! This guy right here just punched a fucking shark! Open your mouth." She takes the beer bottle. She bites her tongue, pouring it down my throat. And now the captain is pulling the rope with a cage with Cindy Selena in the corner. And they get the cage back up on the boat. Meg, they turn the boat back to Rhode Island. Meg throws her arm around my shoulders, and that's how I made my first friend.